You're listening to TFM.
Want to join in the conversation and share your thoughts on this episode? Join the Babel Conference, our listeners' discussion group on Facebook. Just type BABEL into the Facebook search field, and we'll look forward to seeing you there. Well, hello and welcome to TFM's local watering hole. And oh, I forgot we should be kind of quiet. I honestly don't know where we've landed, but it seems vaguely familiar and very dangerous. So I'm just one of your hosts here, Matthew Rushing, and with me, as she is every single week, is Christy Morris.
Ah. Oh, gross.
Oh, that's disgusting.
I know. What is that bug?
I don't even want to know, honestly.
Well, you find all kinds of weird things when you're on an uncharted planet, I guess.
Yeah. Well, that's super gross. Hopefully that doesn't, you're not allergic to anything. But before we dive into the show this week, as we're talking about the new movie 65, thanks for joining us. We're just so glad you're here. Of course, you could find us wherever podcasts can be listened to, and we'd appreciate it wherever that is. Make sure you subscribe, and that way you'll get our episodes as soon as they drop. You, of course, find us all over social media. We're on Twitter at the 602 Club. Of course, we're on Instagram as well at the 602 Club TFM. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/TrekFM. We're in the entire network. We're online at trek.fm, and there's also a listeners-only discussion group you can join called the Babel Conference, where listeners from all over the world can get together and talk about what's happening here with all the episodes that are going on the network. And, of course, you can also give us a star rating and review on any of the podcast listening devices that you've got. So Spotify or Apple Podcasts, those really help people find the show. We'd appreciate that. And last but not least, if you do enjoy what we do here on the network and the 602 Club, you can go over to patreon.com/TrekFM, be part of our team, make sure that all the shows we're doing keep coming to you. The more support we have, the easier it is for us to be able to get shows out on time to you, and to make sure that the shows keep coming to you in the first place. So again, go to patreon.com/TrekFM and become part of our team. So, Christy, I had a really interesting question for you as we were coming into this movie. And, this is one of those things where this is not part of any franchise. This is just from the creators of A Quiet Place series. And so that's kind of what drew me into this, that and the trailer we saw. But I wanted to ask you, kind of coming into the film, what did you, when you saw the preview, what did you pick up from the preview that this movie was going to be?
It's funny that you ask that, because I vividly remember texting you about it when I saw the trailer and going, ooh, interesting. It's like a mix of Jurassic World and Alien. And I think that felt like a very accurate prediction coming into this. Did you kind of feel the same way?
Yeah, I think that's something that's very interesting. I think this is the thing that really got me, and I don't know if, maybe I just was not paying attention well enough when the trailers came out, but I had the feeling as though the trailers were setting this up that humans were on an exploratory mission in space. And get thrown back in time to prehistoric Earth. I did not realize that this movie, that wasn't a thing at all, that it's this civilization that discovers Earth. And so that's the thing I was just, again, I don't know if I haven't, and I should have. I'm sorry I did not. I did not go back and watch the trailers to see, if I, again, was just misreading things. But that's, as I was coming into the movie, that's what I was thinking was going to happen, which, of course, that's not what happens at all. Whereas my wife, apparently she's way smarter than I am, which she totally is. And she got immediately, and she's like, oh no, this is exactly what I thought this movie was going to be.
Huh, okay. Yeah, I think I was more in your line of thought where it seemed like, for whatever reason, humans were thrown in at the same time with dinosaurs for some reason. And so, like you said, sort of either they've gone back in time or they are before we find out that it's Earth, they're exploring other planets and happen to find one with dinosaurs in the future because the weapons and the tech seems very futuristic.
Right.
But that is not what we get. And that is kind of weird. I will say, I think that one thing that they got wrong that they should have found another way to fix is that opening title card that says, "Before the advent of man."
Right.
There were men finding Earth. What?
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess, it is kind of a good time to dive into the idea of the story here, which is that the way the movie has the story set up is that 65 million years ago on a planet called Sumaris, a pilot is going to go on a extended space expedition. He needs this to gain money because their daughter is sick, and this is going to help him and his family with being able to pay for her medical bills. And yet, of course, this also means that he's going to have to be away from them. So the interesting part about this is that it seems in some way to be suggesting that even though these people look just like human beings, they're not actually human beings. And so it's like, well, that's kind of strange. It seems as though, just right up front, I think I would have given these people something that makes them look different enough than human beings so that it didn't just feel like, because there's nothing that differentiates them from humans other than the fact that their planet looks a little bit different because it has like a purple sky.
Yeah. No, exactly. I mean, I think it feels like a contradiction in the very beginning of the movie when you're saying this is before man existed as we know it, and then suddenly you're seeing humans. And you're like, wait.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense.
Yes. No, I'm right there with you. I'm just kind of, I'm a little bit baffled. And Star Trek has done that for a very long time, obviously. The whole idea of, that aliens can look similar to human beings. And so that's not something that I necessarily, that part I don't really have an issue with. It did just seem strange is that, they literally look exactly like human beings. There's nothing that does set them apart. So it just seemed a little bit odd to me that they didn't do a better job of, setting up the film itself.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think you could have easily made it make sense by having either some kind of physical trait about them be different or changing the way that they get there.
Right. Well, and then, with the story too, the fact that he's a pilot and he's ferrying these people that are in cryo to, some different planet. I also did feel like that it would have been nice if the film had done a better job of setting up why these people are going to this different place and giving us an idea of where that is. Because, the thing that causes the big problem in the film is that, they end up running into a meteor shower that, isn't on any of their maps, right? They run into an asteroid shower that's just not a part of any of their charts. And so, I mean, that all makes sense. Space travel is always going to be dangerous. And yet, I think that I don't really have an understanding other than the fact that Mills is the pilot and he's bringing these people. It's like, where are they going and why? I guess that it's like 2 seconds of dialogue that would have been nice to have.
Yeah, and it not only that, but it also feels very similar to the plot of Passengers at this point.
Oh, that's a good call, yeah.
You know, because they're also on an extended expedition to find an inhabitable planet, and they're taking people in cryo because it takes so long to get there,
Right.
and then they run into some meteors that damage the ship, and they have a pilot on board.
Right. Well, and I think the other really weird thing about the story is that they don't do a great job of, I think, letting the audience know that it seems like Mills is awake for the entire duration of this run. And so he's spending 2 years basically by himself. And obviously he's getting things from his family throughout that time period, right? Mm-hmm. And it seems like he can receive messages and he can probably send messages. But the thought process that he's actually spending all of that time alone seems very strange. And, you know, as you so rightly mentioned, the idea of Passengers kind of puts the idea of spending that much time by yourself doesn't seem like it really would be good for anyone. And so I think again, the more I've kind of thought about the movie, even just the story setup here, it seems like it is really missing some things that you would kind of want to be a little bit more understandable to the audience. And again, none of these things I think take any time really to be able to set up a little bit more. You know, I mean, we're talking at most you could do it in 2 to 3 minutes, you know? And so, but I just feel like I feel like I would be more invested in the story itself with its setup if we just had a little bit more to go on.
Right. I think you've hit the nail on the head that there are some things that are essential to suspending your disbelief to take you along for the ride with them, but you're missing those things. And so you're sitting here questioning the whole time, why are we doing this again? Why do we even have to be here? I mean, obviously they said that he needs the money for his daughter's treatment, but ultimately, what is the mission trying to accomplish?
Right, exactly. Because you don't, you know, when they do, spoiler alert, you know, crash on what is prehistoric Earth, you know, I'm not connected to the fact that he's lost his entire group of people, right? Because I don't have any idea, like you said, of really who they are or where they're going or why. And so they're, other than the fact that then, you know, possibly he's lost on this planet and by himself again, you know, forever, if he can't get himself picked up. And so, yeah, there's a lot about the film here in the story setup that seems to be missing some good details, which would help all of this, you know, make more sense and make an audience member feel more connected with the film from the get-go.
Mm-hmm. And to add to what you said as well, I think that if you had some little flashbacks of introducing each of the people that are in cryo and why they've gone on this expedition and shown, you know, maybe it's like Koa's parents and that they have a good relationship and that they, you know, raised her well and they're excited to go somewhere new. Something to make you care more so that you are then feeling a sense of loss when all of these people die. It's kind of sad that there's no real reflection on how many lives were lost.
Right. Well, and then in some ways, I think you'd just have more of a connection with Koa herself and her parents being lost. And so absolutely agree with you there. I think all of those things make sense. And I think, this is a film to which we're dealing with loss, especially Mills losing his daughter, who he, through the course of the film and through seeing the messages that get sent him, we realize that his daughter has passed away in this time. And so everything that he's been doing on this mission comes to naught, right? Because her illness progresses and they're not able to save her. And so all of what we just talked about in the idea of dealing with his loss, and then of course Koa having to deal with the loss of her parents once she realizes, and Mills tells her, and it finally clicks for her, because another thing about the film is that they don't speak the same language because they're from a different part of the planet, which is again something that setup could have done better. And so they're both dealing with loss, right? Mm-hmm. But I feel like the thing that really creates an issue there is that because we haven't had the setup that we were just discussing in the way that I think would have been more beneficial, we don't actually get to explore this in the depth that we would like. That would really, I think, make this theme come more to light than it actually does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that they make you connected with his daughter enough, but they don't give enough background on what her illness is or what kind of a father he was, other than that brief scene on the beach. All of the motivations that would show why he was doing this, aside from the major one of her disease.
Right.
And then really showing enough of his even relationship with his wife, because then suddenly he's gone, and it's also like, she's then doubly alone because her daughter has died and her husband's gone. So it's like, do we care about her too? So it suddenly doesn't really focus on his wife at all.
Right. Well, and then I think, the idea of dealing with loss and everything, it then makes, I think, the story, spoiler alert, they survive, right? And they're able to escape prehistoric Earth. And so I think it makes that part of the story better as well, because he's going to be rescued. She's going to be rescued. In your head, you're putting the pieces together that he'll end up adopting her, and him and his wife will have a daughter again, right? It's not going to replace their daughter, but it will be a way of being able to heal. And I think all of the setup that we were talking about and the things that we felt like were kind of missing there at the beginning of the film, I think would have a much larger impact than on even where the film lands with what these characters go through. And I think another thing that the film kind of becomes about, because of the situation that Mills and Koa are in, they're trying to escape prehistoric Earth, and this movie becomes about that idea of found family and the importance of companionship, because without it you're lost. I mean, when he thinks all the passengers are dead and he'll never be able to get off this planet, and he knows his daughter is dead, he almost commits suicide. And so the importance of having companionship, especially since being alone and utterly alone, can have such an impact on you, personally. And so I think they do that decently well with the way in which Mills and Koa find the connection with each other here and begin to, lean on each other and work together and basically kind of create this new family unit. It just, I think, again, it all kind of comes back to it could have been even better.
Yeah, I mean, I think that those were the two things that were done the best in this movie, and that all of the things we're talking about are not the fault of the actors, that
Right.
It's purely writing that could have fixed a few things. But the way that the two of them played the depth of emotion, and especially the scenes, like you said, where he almost commits suicide and then finds the one person that happens to still be alive in their cryopod, and that it happens to be sort of like destiny of the universe sending him someone like a daughter to help him heal,
Right.
is so great. And that you can tell how much they come to mean to each other as they go along the journey, because he has to rescue her, and then she in turn rescues him twice. They're learning from each other, and even though they don't speak the same language, I like that it's also showing that there's a universal language of being able to overcome those barriers through body language and stuff. So it ends up being a really beautiful story in that sense, and I love that they show that people need other people. We are not solitary creatures. And that's, I think, something that sets us apart from animals, is that without some kind of companionship, whether it's like a child and a parent, or two adults or two friends, that we are lost without that we need that for protection, but as well as just to keep our sanity. And when he thinks that he's lost her in the rock fall, the depth of sadness he feels of like he's messed up again was just so moving and really sweet to see then when he does find her.
Yeah, I think, that's definitely a thing for this film, is that, and I think you put it really beautifully, people who need people. And, humanity is we're relational beings, right? And every part of our being is relational. And from the moment we're born to the moment we die. And we're meant to be in relationship with each other. And so to be a person that doesn't have that is damaging and hurtful in so many ways. And it's also, because we're relational beings, then the hurt and pain that we can cause each other, or that we feel when those that we love die, and all those things are just accentuated, because it is to the very core of who we are, that those relationships. And so, no, I agree with you. I mean, I think that's, to me, the best part of the film is the way in which they are able to connect these two characters together. And I think that, for me, one of the biggest reasons of that is that you have Adam Driver in here, which I've always liked Adam Driver as an actor. And I've always felt like he is a good actor. He's great at portraying emotion. Like you said, none of the problems that I have in this film have anything to do with the cast. And it's a small cast. But Adam Driver just, I think, puts everything into this movie possible. I mean, we came away from the film and I was talking to my wife and I said, man, he's just disgusting this whole movie. Like, and I mean, like, physically, he's muddy and dirty. They're putting him in water and this soupy stuff and this quicksand. And it's just like, I mean, he gives everything to this film to bring it to life. And I think the way that he's able to portray it emotionally and physically is exactly what the film needs. And he's a highlight of the movie because I think he's able to do exactly what you need to do to make all of this feel right, in the sense of what you should feel for this character and feel from his performance.
Yeah, this movie is definitely one of those that we've talked about before. Is that it's a character study. It only really centers on these two people. And if they're not good, then nothing in the movie is good. And I think that they definitely cast the right person using Adam Driver for Mills, because I think also he really uses his own life experience when it's necessary to draw from. And he is a parent. He actually apparently has a second child on the way right now. And also is formerly in the military. So I could see him having some survival skills and knowing, when he needs to just buck up and keep going. And I think that he brings all of that to this role. And you can really see that he's showing how someone who is a father and someone sent here to do a job is then put in this impossible situation and trying to figure out how to move forward.
Yes.
And then also now protect someone else. And I love that they're showing that even your heroes have weaknesses when, you can see that he has an infection from that wound on his side. And she catches him looking and he says, "I'm just tired." He's trying to portray, I'm fine, really. It's fine. I'm Superman. And he's not, and that's okay. But, he's dealing with his own things, but he's still having to be strong for her.
Right. I agree with you on every front. I think, you talked about the idea of him being a father and, of course, having been in the military. I think all of those things he brings to bear in his performance here. And again, I've always found him to be an actor who is able to do a minimal amount of talking, and yet you actually understand everything that's happening to him just because of his facial features and the way that the look on his face, right? He's just so good at that. And I think the other part of this is that Adriana Greenblatt, who plays Koa, she does such a great job of that as well, because she doesn't have a lot of lines in this movie, and the lines that she does have, most of them are in a language we don't understand. And yet everything that you need to feel with that character, she is able to bring to life. And that is a very difficult thing for a young actor to have to do, I believe. And, you really need a child actor to be able to perform well to make that happen. And I think she does a great job.
Right. She says everything in her facial expressions and her body, her movements, her just her vibe and chemistry in being part of this movie. I think that she does such a great job at getting across, even though she's speaking a different language, how scared she is, or wanting him to be there for her, or especially when she wants to rescue the baby dinosaur, that she still has a heart as well. She's still a child, and yet she's stuck in this situation and having to grow up really fast. I love that scene is also getting across that that's probably the first time she's had to deal with death, because she's trying to understand why, for example, there's cruelty in the world with those other dinosaurs attacking the baby. And then later learning that her parents are not only dead, but that he lied to her about it. She's having to deal with a lot. And this actress, for being her age, man, she really gets everything you need out in her face.
Mm-hmm. Yes, 100%. No, it's a really great performance, and I think it's one of the best parts of the film. So, and which is a good thing, because with all the setup issues that we talked about, if the acting hadn't been on where it needed to be to bring these roles to life, it would have been really, really frustrating as a film.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not the case because I think they are able to bring it to life in a way that, this movie could have been atrocious. And it's not, because both of these actors just, I think, act their hearts out. I did want to ask you too, because another part of the story here is the looming asteroid. And what did you think about the idea that one of the reasons that there is a time crunch for them to get off the planet is because they just happen to run into the same asteroid that's going to hit Earth and destroy everything and reset the planet, and kill all the dinosaurs? And how did that work for you?
I mean, I think on the one hand, it's awfully convenient and not really imaginative storytelling to have that be the case. But then again, if you think about any way that it could have ended, you do need something that is the catalyst of them needing to get out of there quickly. My opinion is that I would have made it like just the dinosaurs are all coming after them and they've got to get out of there or else they're never going to get off the planet, period. I don't think you needed the asteroid. But, I mean, they've named it 65. They've got dinosaurs. I feel like that was the point of the whole thing, is that it's centered around that particular event that we're all aware of.
Yeah, I mean, I totally understood why they made the choice, because apparently they felt like they did need another reason for them to get off the planet. But I do agree with you that I don't feel like that they needed that, right? I feel like that there's enough of a reason for them to need to get off this planet because it's so inhospitable for humanity at this point, or whatever they are, Solarians or whatever, and so I don't feel like that this is a needed thing for them. And I think, for them, I guess what they're thinking is that this creates a countdown clock, and they want you to feel that urgency, so there isn't time for them to rest. There isn't, they have to make it. And it just ramps up the tension, but I don't necessarily know if it was needed. And like you said too, I mean, I get too that the idea that, this asteroid that's heading for Earth and, the break-off pieces are what the ship runs into, which is why it's not on the scopes, right? But I'm of two minds of it. I can totally understand why they do it. I just don't necessarily know if I feel like it was necessary. And like you said, I think convenient is the word that comes to mind. And so, yeah.
Like, we need something to get them off the planet. How about we'll redo Armageddon?
Yeah, it's kind of, yeah, exactly. So,
I mean, I know obviously like it's a little bit different, but yeah, I think that you could have even had it like he gets a message to his little device that says that the ship is going to self-destruct in so many days. You have a countdown right there. Yeah,
that's I actually think that's a great way to create the story, and so and I think the idea there too that the countdown clock of that it so that their technology doesn't fall into the hands of people that were on a planet they might land on, so that makes complete sense. Yeah. So
anyway,
yeah, all of that are things that I think kind of create some tension for me with it. But what did you feel about, because this movie is a big deal. This movie is very much about the look, the feel, the effects of the film, because we're with dinosaurs, we're on prehistoric Earth. How did that all work for you? Did you feel like they did a good job with, creating this kind of prehistoric feel and then bringing those, dinosaur, that alien feel to life?
I thought that was another really good part of this movie. Like we joked about in the beginning with the bugs landing on the back of his neck, or the nasty bug that crawled inside Koa's mouth.
Ugh.
Made me puke.
Yes.
That was some good effect work. And I thought the dinosaurs looked really good. I mean, I think that they also really used lighting and set design to their advantage. I'm thinking of the cave scene where you can't really tell where the dinosaur is that sneaks up on them until then you see some scenes where his device picks it up. There were some creative shots like that were really cool, and I thought that all the gadgets that they gave him were really neat. Some things like, setting up a perimeter of glow sticks that have a little alarm when something gets too close. Or, like I said, like his gadget that shows an overview of whatever you're trying to look at, sort of like binoculars,
Yeah.
but then you get a 3D image.
Mm-hmm.
That was neat. And even their, suits and cryopods and stuff, you believe that that's what they are because they look like things we've seen before, but a little bit different. So I had no issue with the effects and all of the set pieces and costumes.
Yeah. I'm right there with you on that part. I think this is one of the places where the movie does excel in creating a very believable, alien technologies. And I think, for the most part, all the dinosaurs looked great. I think one of the things that this film does very much want to do is not repeat all the stuff that you've seen in the Jurassic series. And so, we do, I guess, see a T-Rex, a couple of them. I'm guessing that's what those are. And yet, there's a lot of other dinosaurs that we haven't spent as much time with in the Jurassic series. So I think that's a good thing. Like you, I think the effects work looked really good. All the places they filmed, I know they filmed in places like Louisiana and Oregon and some places like that, and kind of put everything together to create a landscape that just feels familiar and then very unfamiliar at the same time, even it's our own planet. And so I think the only thing that doesn't necessarily work as well as when the asteroids start hitting. But other than that, I think this movie looks good, which is really important to the film. So what's interesting to me, though, is, this is a very straightforward movie. There's not a lot of nuance to it and everything. And part of that for a lot of the reasons that we've talked about. And so I'm fascinated to see where you are going to end up with your ratings for this film.
I was really surprised at how glued I was to the screen when I was seeing this in the theater, because like we said, there are some things here that definitely could have been explained better and some things that I felt were derivative. But the jump scares added a lot. I think the effects were cool. And I think that you had two actors that really held up the story well. So I don't rate it as low as I might have just for those other pieces. Because I think that it's got its saving grace with the two of them, and then with the story of the companionship and really focusing on their journey. So I think ultimately for me, I kind of end up at it's so hard. I guess I'm going to give it a 3.5 out of 5 alarming glow sticks. Nice. Because it does have some cool things about it, and I would go see it again. But I do think it's got some big things that could have been a lot better. So it's not horrible, but it's not great either.
Yeah, I think that for the type of film that this movie is, it's fine. I think, one of the things that, we've talked about the whole time is that there are so many ways where this film could have easily been much better. And I think that's kind of the frustrating thing. And so for me, I would give this, it's probably 2.75, but you can't do that on Letterboxd. So I will give it a 3. It is a 3 out of 5 nasty bug bites. But it's just there in the sense that I enjoyed it at the theater, but it was also one of those films that the more I thought about it, the more I had kind of some issues, with the movie. And so, but Christy, I'm really excited to see what you want to recommend to everybody this week.
Yeah, I actually am recommending something a little bit different this time. I was inspired by the nasty bugs in this movie to talk about, if you haven't seen, there's a really cool new experience that you can buy tickets for in certain cities, and it's called the Looming Institute, and it's literally like a museum of slime. You can buy tickets and go to this live experience where you get to see how slime is made, like the chemical process of different kinds of slime. They add fun like scents to it, colors. You can actually stand under a waterfall of slime in a poncho and get slimed.
Okay.
Yeah. So everything about slime you ever wanted to do, check out the Looming Institute. And I'm trying to get some tickets, hopefully before it leaves Atlanta.
Nice.
Yeah.
So it's basically like a Nickelodeon show, where they would
but
just slime
so
you.
much better. It's not just green. It's like pink and blue and all kinds of stuff. They had one that smelled like hot chocolate.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
So anyway, try something new like that and check out the Looming Institute.
Very cool. Well, I'm going to recommend, the other night, my wife and I sat down and we decided we wanted to watch a movie, and she wanted to watch Pride and Prejudice, the one with Keira Knightley, which is personally my favorite version of that film. I think it's fantastic. It is actually one of the most beautiful movies that's ever been produced, and the soundtrack is phenomenal. And so I'm just going to recommend everybody goes and watches that because it's just so good. And yeah, I just love it. So Pride and Prejudice is my recommendation. But Christy, if people want to catch up with you, where should they find you?
You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Letterboxd at Bespin Bell. And when I'm not here, I do a show called Sabers and Spells with my friends Amanda and Teresa on the Skywalking Through Neverland network. And of course, you can find me sometimes too on Facebook in the Babel Conference. But what about you?
Well, you can find me all over social media under the name MattRushing02, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, Vero, the places I'm most active. Of course, you can find me in the bonus shows of the 602 Club, as well as literary treks about the books and the comics of Star Trek, The Orb about Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Warp 5 about Star Trek Enterprise, Saddle Up about Strange New Worlds, and of course, The Artificial Tango as we are walking through Season 3 of Star Trek Picard. And then over on the Nerd Party Network, I have a completed show called Owl Post. Did that with Drea Kaufman, and we talked about every single chapter of the Harry Potter series. And then Aggressive Negotiations with the great John Mills as we talk about Star Wars each and every week. But thank you so much for joining us.
And y'all come back now, you hear?
Thank you.